So we have been talking about word of knowledge and word of wisdom, and we understand that they are revelatory gifts, right? The three revelatory gifts: word of knowledge, word of wisdom, and discerning of spirits, or the spirit of discernment. Um, Word of knowledge and word of wisdom can oftentimes get a little mixed up, even though they're very distinct. Even when I think about knowledge, knowledge deals with information, right? As a professor, I can spew information all day long, right? I can talk about theories and concepts and why this worked and why this wouldn't, and talk about case studies. But when Chris, the professor of marketing, changes and become marketing consultant, now it's time for me to execute those same concepts because I want them to be tested and proven, right? So when you think about word of wisdom is where once I have the knowledge, the information, and I not only have the knowledge and the information, but I understand how to apply it. But not just how to apply it, I discern when to apply it, when to use it, when this problem is necessary. See, intellect is when you take the information and you can apply it to solve a problem. But wisdom is when you can take the information, apply it to solve a problem, and use judgment on even when, how, what, where this should be implemented, or how it should be applied. And so, oftentimes we receive word of knowledge, right? The difference between what makes wisdom so very distinct from knowledge is what also comes with wisdom is experience. So we talked a little bit about experiential revelation. So I don't just want knowledge, and it's not enough for me to have intellect to be able to comprehend something and understand how to apply it for a specific problem or solution, but I need to be able to judge and discern when to apply it. I remember I was upset about something, and I wanted to tell the truth, and I wanted to just say what I had to say, but in saying the truth, it was truth, but was it wise? Because the Bible also say, if all possible, live peaceably with all men. So I just closed my mouth, because wisdom in that moment was, even though I had truth to tell, it wasn't time, because it was lawful, it was good, but it wasn't the best thing. It's not always expedient. So for me, I'm like, Lord, I want word of knowledge, because we need word of knowledge, but I want to be able to function in the word of wisdom, because in the word of wisdom, there's instruction, there's counsel, and you truly can bring about solutions. For he has anointed me to preach, right, the gospel, right, to the poor, right, to open blinded eyes, to set at liberty those that are captive. So you want to bring about solutions, but I don't just want to solve a problem. I want to be able to have judgment and discernment on what exactly I need to do. A lot of times we have knowledge and God is telling us to do, but because in order to get to wisdom, it requires some experience. And sometimes that experience it requires you to live a little while, but it also sometimes requires you to go and do. So I give an example. Acts chapter 9. Verse 10. We see here, now there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, and to him the Lord said in a vision, Ananias. And he said, here I am, Lord. So the Lord said to him, arise and go to the street called Straight. So this is revelatory knowledge that did not come from me, right? Ananias, nobody told Ananias this. You know, he didn't know necessarily, okay, I'm going to go to a street called Straight today. No, in the moment, in a vision, God told him, I want you to go here to this particular street. It said, inquire at this particular house, the house of Judas, for this particular person, Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he is praying, and in a vision he has seen a man named Ananias coming and putting his hand on him so that he might receive his sight. So here we see word of knowledge. We see God tells Ananias, I want you to get up, I want you to go here, and I want you to do this. That information, I don't want you to go to this person. That could not have come from anybody else but God, because I'm sure he wasn't waiting around, or he just didn't know that Paul was on this street at this house. And it goes on and it says in verse 13, and Ananias answered, said, Lord, I have heard from many about this man. So Ananias now said, Lord, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. You want me to go talk to this street, to this house, and talk to this person? And so God gave him instructions, and he went and he did it. He didn't try to comprehend. He did not need to understand. He just needed to execute and do what God has told him to do. However, if we look in Acts chapter 8, starting in verse 26, the angel of the Lord spoke to Philip, saying, arise and go towards the south along the road which goes down to Jerusalem and Gaza. This is the desert. He says, so he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, the queen of Ethiopia, who had charge over all her treasury, and had come to Jerusalem to worship. Okay. He had come to Jerusalem to worship, was returning, and sitting in his chariot, he was reading Isaiah the prophet. Then the Spirit said to Philip, wait, first I got a word of knowledge to go here. But in that moment, the Spirit said to Philip, go near and overtake his chariot. Go and eavesdrop on what you're hearing. So Philip ran to him and heard him reading prophet Isaiah, and said, do you understand what you are reading? Now, this is an opportunity for the word of wisdom to come forth. And he said, how can I unless someone guides me? The word of wisdom guides, instructs, and gives counsel. But it's out of experience. So what are you trying to say? Yeah, it's out of experience. So this is what he says. He says, how can I unless someone guides me? And he asked Philip to come up and sit with him. The place in the scripture which he read was, he was led as a sheep to the slaughter, and as a lamb before its shear is silent. So he opened not his mouth. In his humiliation, his justice was taken away. And who will declare his generations? For his life is taken from the earth. So the eunuch answered Philip and said, I ask you, of whom does this prophet say this? Of who? Of himself or of some other man? Then Philip opened his mouth and beginning at this scripture, preach Jesus to him. Jesus is what? Been made unto us all wisdom. Now as they went down the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, see, here is water. What hinders me from being baptized? So here, now, Philip could preach out of experiential revelation, because he could preach Jesus because he walked with Jesus. So now we see this disciple now is received the word of knowledge, and now he can give word of wisdom out of his experience. He was ready and prepared to preach Jesus. Oftentimes we'll get a word, and a lot of times we go before our time, where our faith have not been proven, and we go before our time based on just a word. And sometimes you do need to execute, you need to go and do things, but before you get to the place where you begin to guide and instruct and counsel, you need some understanding. And sometimes that understanding comes with experience. But a lot of people aren't willing to step out on faith and experience God and encounter God, because they'll get a word and they'll sit with that word and say, well, Lord, tell me what to do. Lord is saying, go do this. And you say, okay, Lord, I don't know how. But if you notice, both of them, Ananias and Philip, they heard the word of the Lord and they began to take action. They girded up their loins, right? They began to take action. And in taking the action, God revealed to Pete, to Philip, this is why I told you to get up and go here. For this reason, you were called and sent to this people. For this reason, I've set you apart. Just like Esther, for such a time as this. Sometimes the revelation that doesn't come, or the understanding doesn't come until you go, until you begin to do, until you begin to experience God, that's when the understanding comes. But a lot of times folks don't want to gain the understanding before they actually begin to go. Or should I say, they haven't had enough time. They want to begin to give you a word of wisdom, but yet they don't quite qualify because that revelation ain't real to them. It's something that they know. It's something that they may have heard, but it may not be something that they've experienced. So I'll give you an example. Someone was telling me, 23-year-old girl, I've been with someone 26 years. Since I was 15, 23-year-old girl tells me about marriage. I had to let her know, sweetheart, you don't qualify to tell me about marriage. Because you may have a word, but you don't have understanding. Because one of the best ways to receive understanding and wisdom is experience. Not the only way, but you can't take my experience away from me. Because my faith has been proven genuine, because it has been tested. So I want you all to just kind of really sit on this, understand the difference between word of knowledge or knowledge. Remember, that's information. And then also intellect. Intellect, I can take information and I can apply it. Just like anybody can read the Bible and exegesis it. They can put it right. Okay, well, here's the context. This is who he was talking to. This is when he was talking to. This is what he was trying to say. He was talking to this people for this purpose, and make it relevant today. That don't mean they experienced anything. That don't mean they've gone. That don't mean that word has become a rhema to them. Living life experience to know. So you can have intellect, and you can call yourself having a Bible study and start teaching. But not everybody can deliver a word of wisdom. That right there requires most times experiential revelation. Where when I preach about something, or when you minister to somebody, you are not ministering from a place of what you read. You are ministering from a place of experience. I know that God is Jireh because I experienced Jireh, and I left and I put myself in a position where, Lord, you told me to trust you, and I'm going to do that. I know you as my shepherd. I know you as my healer because you healed my body. I know you as a deliverer because you delivered me out of harm and danger. Head on with a tree. Totaled. I know you to be the balm in Gilead, because when there was no cure, when I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get well, I know it was nobody but you that told me to do this and do this and do this, because it didn't align with anything the doctors were saying. So I always tell people, even when you receive a word of knowledge, sit a little bit, let God give you instruction. And when he gives you instruction, execute. Take him at his word. He says, oh, taste and see. Oh, test and see that the Lord is good.